From incredible scope to the most intimate, to the loud or meditative, to the tense and absurd, or even more absurd, we have our list of the best movies of 2025 ready for you. And I'm glad to say that this year had a lot of diverse movies to offer anyone out there. But for our list, these 11 movies are the ones we love the most, would keep rewatching and highly recommend as we're doing in this video. So settle in, cozy up as we get cinematically retrospective. And what better place to do so than at a movie theater where one could say we spent over 100 hours watching movies this year. Before we get started, we will not be giving out spoilers in this list. All the information present is stuff you would have seen in a trailer, but we might mention some scenes we really liked. And we'll make sure to clean it up a bit so we don't give away important plot points.
Also, in the description, we wrote down where you can watch these movies at the present time.
Oh, and this is not a ranked list, but the very last one is the one we loved the most this year. So let's get things started here at the beautiful, warm and welcoming Cinema de Parc with the very first movie on this list. And this is a movie that I really liked because of its portrayal of trauma, but mixed with an incongruous levity that made a lot of the scenes that would otherwise feel sad or difficult to watch into something humorous without taking away from the emotion. The very empathetic indie film, Sorry Baby.
Something pretty bad happened to me, so that's probably why I'm acting weird.
How bad?
Agnes has a long-awaited visit from a much-beloved college friend. But as they're catching up, we start to notice that Agnes's life in comparison seems to have hit a wall for a while now. What follows are different moments from the past 5 years that unravel a traumatic event that robbed Agnes of her will to go on. I like how this movie deals with the subject matter by not shying away from it and softening the difficult situations with humor, like showing the laughable disinterest of a doctor during a very uncomfortable examination, or the awkwardness of a discussion to borrow lighter fluid from a neighbor, while masking the concerning reasoning in doing so. I also like that the approach of trauma in this movie is not about the parts we expect to see, it's about the aftermath that usually remains unseen. The day-to-day routine life, the moments of just having to deal with it and also failing to do so, and the people in your life that help you to move forward, which in this movie are very well cast. Their interactions showed a lot of good chemistry, comedic back and forth, and believable understanding. Like its characters, the story is made in a very compassionate way, coming from a place of insight and experience, offering a helping hand and space to validate the difficult emotions of people that live in the aftermath of trauma. Like the director Eva Victor said, I didn't need a film that existed to teach people how bad it is to go through a bad thing. I needed a film that existed to make me feel less alone. A really good first-time approach, and I'm hoping to see more from her. Next up is a film that manages to capture the essence of a time and place so effectively that it makes you even feel nostalgic for it. I love it because it's a complete mashup of structure, pace, and of genres, from comedy, drama, to political thriller to horror. But I also like when it takes the scenic route to make you feel like you're in Brazil in the 70s, experiencing the contrast of its liveliness and beauty versus the routine horrors that can await you. A film with some mischief, The Secret Agent.
Eu matava ele com martelo. Tu anda armado? Não, mas eu sei usar martelo.
This movie starts on the main character, Marcelo, refueling at a gas station. Yet almost as an afterthought, there is a corpse on the ground. The gas station attendant assures Marcelo that the corpse has been there for days, so he shouldn't worry about it. I think this scene sets the right tone for the rest of the movie. We follow Marcelo at his hometown in 1977 during Carnival. He's laying low, trying not to arouse too much attention to himself, as he's being tracked down by hitmen and surrounded by corrupt authorities. All he wants to do is to take his son and get out of Brazil as quickly as possible. And that is a more straightforward explanation of events than the movie will offer you. There are so many threads, characters, storylines, timelines that compose this film that I was asking myself where everything was heading halfway through the story. Yet, I liked it. I never felt like the moving pieces didn't add up, regardless of how tangential they might first appear, like the storyline of a leg found in a shark that takes a life of its own. It all felt like layers that better presented this time and place. Another thing I loved was the bipolar pace. In the beginning, it feels like we're taking time to roam around and take in the sights, sounds, and feel of this resurrected world. And then it can turn tense, and you feel like the main character, with rolling beads of sweat hoping he didn't just get recognized by the authorities. And then it snaps up and becomes frenetic with a display of South American violence, quick, harsh, and gritty. If I can compare it to two movies, it would be Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because of this film's time machine-like quality to capture this era. And the second is No Country for Old Men, because of the way the violence creeps up and follows the main character, building to a shootout towards the end. It's a pulpy and sweaty genre mashup that invites you to read between the lines of history. The following movie on this list is also interested in recreating a past reality, but this is not about an actual location. It takes the very difficult task of creating an art house sensorial reflection of the life of cinema, from its birth to the end of the last century. An impressive and unique vision that plays with cinematic boundaries, Resurrection. The story is set in the future, a world where people no longer dream in exchange for immortality. Yet we don't really get to spend time in this world. We follow two characters, a deviant called Delirium that has the ability to dream and hides in its illusions, and an investigator in pursuit of a deviant. But the dreamscapes change and are presented through different characters, time periods, and also genres, separated in 5 segments, each representing a story specifically tied to a human sense. It feels like an introspection done with a unique vision. It's maybe because the writer-director Bugonia is a self-taught filmmaker that I feel his visions don't follow certain conventions we would expect in a normal film. His background as a poet shines specifically in the early segments, where we don't use sound and focus on visuals. His ideas might seem simple, but the execution causes a swell of internal rumination. His decision-making feels refreshing and makes me even question the movement and positioning of the camera, because it's decisions I would have never thought about. It feels like what you can take from this movie is not exactly an exploration of what films are, but what films can still be, that the boundaries of cinema can still expand and be tested. It is a movie that demands some patience, but if you've never seen a Bugonia movie and are saddened by the loss of filmmakers like David Lynch who explored dream logic, you will appreciate it as much as we did. Now, time for a movie that's more tied to reality, but its groundedness is actually offset by its absurdity. A tale of stalled vengeance that gets even more convoluted as it advances, maintained by a skilled tonal balance of humor and tension. This year's must-see Iranian Palme d'Or winner, It Was Just an Accident.
میگم دوز این داروی شاید زیاد بوده کارشو ساخته.
نیم ساعت پیش چکش کردم. الان فقط باید منتظر باشیم.
تا کی باید منتظر باشیم؟
تا وقتی که بهوش بیاد.
چه فرقی میکنه بابا؟ چه بیهوش چه باهوش یارو میخوایم بکنیم تو گور.
Vahid was having a slow day as an auto mechanic until a customer came in with a sound that has haunted him for many years, the distinct squeak of a prosthetic leg. It reminds him of when he was imprisoned by Iranian authorities, when he was blindfolded, interrogated and tortured by a man whose leg made the same sound. Not wanting to miss his chance, Vahid follows the man, kidnaps him, and takes him to the desert to give him what he deserves, to be buried alive. But as he's about to do the final deed, he hesitates. He needs to be 100% sure that this man is his torturer. What I like about the movie is how the main character goes about getting this confirmation. He starts to involve other tortured victims to get their opinion on this situation, and the story gets surprisingly funny, in a way you wouldn't expect this subject matter of oppression and torture would allow. The way these 5 strangers united in trauma embark on this unlikely journey of vengeance in this small van, while 2 of them are dressed for their wedding pictures, how they try to hide the fact that they have an unconscious body in the van, and how they even insert themselves in the life of the could-be torturer. It's all an effective escalation into absurdity. But I like how this overlong, awkward hesitation to commit murder is used to show their humanity. even if this act of retribution would seem justified. It's in that internal struggle the characters have that show the director's overall intent, that these cycles of violence don't lie specifically inside of the people, but in the systems they are a part of. A well-told tale of morality that sees its director sentenced to prison for having expressed it. Moving on from something subtle to something more rambunctious and in your face, it's the anxiety-inducing, non-stop rollercoaster ride of bad decisions to achieve greatness at all cost. Marty Supreme.
I'm not coming back here and doing this. Speaking of which, can we settle up now? I gotta buy my plane ticket.
We'll settle at closing.
I wanted to see the travel agent on my lunch break.
You'll never come back after your lunch break.
That's what you think of me?
Yes.
Right out the gate, Timothée Chalamet plays an insufferable asshole with a one-track mind, proving he's the best ping pong player in the world. Although this is 1/3 sports movie and 2/3 a character study. He keeps crossing the line with his relationships and also as a human being in general. But what is commendable is his drive to achieve what he wants. If you love uncut gems and good time, and you wish you could see the same brand of character maneuvering increasingly high-wire tense situations and operating through life on borrowed currency, well, you'll get your fill here. I like how chaotic it can get, and how there never seems to be a bottom for this character. And whenever you think things can't get any worse, they most certainly will. Apart from that, it's a successful reimagining of the 50s mixed in with some 80s flair. Director Josh Safdie shows more refinement behind the camera, but maintains an early signature grit. I love Timothy's indomitable energy and the camera work that's used to keep up with him. They really were able to make a table sport feel so high stakes and urgent. Now from something gritty to something that at first glance looks deceptively wholesome. It takes the very relatable premise of the cutthroat job market and exaggerates it into a sharp, darkly funny satire. No other choice.
아니 돼지지 누가 뱀을 커먹어.
Mensu had it all. A beautiful house, a perfect looking family, and a sense of purpose in the job he's had for over 25 years. But his aspirational reality was threatened when he got laid off. And to make matters worse, he has been unable to find a new job because of the oversaturated competitive job market. Out of desperation, he decides to put up his own job post to sniff out and murder all the higher qualified candidates. I really like this elaborate thought experiment and how it presents a very heightened story to the point that it becomes a caricature. Down to our first meeting with Mensu's perfect-looking family, with even flower petals adorning them at the start, to the almost slapstick assassination efforts from the protagonist that are more comical than unnerving. But most of all, the character's monomaniacal stubbornness. At different points, several characters when faced with an impasse state, "Well, I have no other choice." From the company that fired Mensu, to his competitors, to his wife, it's like a cultish mantra that gets passed around for the characters to double down on a bad decision, because their pride or greed can't let them accept another alternative. Which is the main point of the movie, and this mindset is expertly mocked in the director's most accessible movie to date, without missing a beat with his trademark creative transitions, precise editing, and tongue-in-cheek scene blocking. It made me think of a half-remembered Aesop's Fable lesson that I might be misassigning and went something like, "Men will hazard everything to recover what has been taken from them, yet will not labor half as hard for a greater good they have never known." Next up is a movie I really enjoyed because of how it uses genre as a personal exploration of the past, but composed as a stylish, gritty Southern Gothic musical grindhouse vampire tale. Director Ryan Coogler effectively tests the elasticity of the horror movie genre with this blood-soaked entry, Sinners.
Why you can't just walk your big ass up in here without an invite, huh? Admit to it.
Admit to what?
That you dead.
We start on Sam, the beat-up and shaken protagonist carrying the neck of a broken guitar and the aftermath of the night that changed his life forever. The day his two twin cousins, Smoke and Stack, came back to town, promising a night of dancing, drinks, and songs on the opening of their juke joint. But it was also the night they attracted an uninvited guest that presents them with a dark choice: death or assimilation. I think some people might argue that, well, a vampire horror movie shouldn't have a musical number or this or that, but I think this proves why the horror genre is one of my favorite genres, because it can have all of those things. It can use old vampire lore in its rules. It can be a retrospection of the Black experience. It can have a duel of folk songs with Irish and Black vampires dancing a jig, and it can also be a personal tribute to the blues. And the musical aspect isn't just this nice thing to have, it's a meaningful core part of the story. How it can be transcendental like the scene of the opening of the Veil. It's a sign of heritage like with the vampire Remick longing for his lost identity, and ultimately of healing, like in one of my favorite scenes acted out by Delroy Lindo as he tells the tragic story of a lynched blues player. I liked how many elements Ryan Coogler manages to fit in this movie and makes them build off of each other. He shows why horror is elastic and not a monolith cemented on whatever structure we might attribute to it. If that were the case, horror wouldn't have half the subgenres it possesses. Like Ryan Coogler said, horror can hold a lot. It has big shoulders. The following movie has nested in my mind ever since I saw it, and it has no plans of ever leaving. A meditative, slow-paced examination of loss and one's place in the world. A surprising product of minimalism and purposefulness. The solemn leaving, currently under the radar, Train Dreams.
You hear that? Beautiful, ain't it?
What is art?
All of it.
We follow Robert Grenier, a logger in the Pacific Northwest who is just trying to live a simple life, providing for his growing family, dealing with the struggles of the time but also wrestling with having to be away from his wife and child, in a job that he's afraid might eventually take his life. We get to see different periods of Robert's life, through the moments you wish you can savor that slip through your fingers, and the moments that feel endless and unforgiving and all you can do is survive. There is a quality that I love in this movie that persists throughout, the notion of less is more. We see that with Clint Bentley's direction. The camera movement is subtle, sometimes still, but precise. It's also in how he places the characters in the frame to show scale, how nature is not just a scenic backdrop, but a character with a silent and impressive role. And speaking of silence, Joel Edgerton deserves attention for his very understated performance, playing a man with a limited emotional toolbox, a man with the same complex emotions as everyone else, but who lacks the words to express the depths of his grief. It's a great physical display of this man's inner struggle, not just with his eyes, but the small changes in the posture of someone carrying the weight of absence. Once the movie was done, it led me to have an uncomfortable inner monologue with myself, about meaning and existence, about loss and acceptance of that loss, and acceptance of one's place in the world, empty of protest or hurt, but of silent inner peace, an acknowledgement of the beauty of life, no matter how tempestuous the experience. A movie that you might also find yourself wrestling with in the moments of silence. I think Joel Edgerton perfectly encapsulates the meaning of the movie by saying, an ordinary life is epic and heroic in itself. The next movie on the list I really loved and rank highly because of how it presents the inability to communicate. How even if two people want the same thing, grew up in the same household, share similar traits, can suffer from the gaps that can get in the way of true understanding. The Norwegian dramedy about family dysfunction, sentimental value.
Why didn't you want to do the role? He wanted you to do it.
I can't work with him. We can't really talk.
After the death of her mother, Nora, a stage actress, is reunited with her mostly absent father Gustav, an old movie director. He manages to convince her to meet, hoping to cast her in his new film. But Nora questions her father's motives because he has never even seen her act in her theater roles. She rejects his offer and further deepens the emotional chasm between the two. I like how they created the contrast of Gustav as a father who is unable to say a sentence without hurting his daughters, and him as a movie director, where he displays a deep well of emotion and understanding that can move anyone through his movies. How one person can hold both truths. It reminds me of the peculiar example of Hayao Miyazaki, known for his masterwork of animated tales of humanity that can pierce through anyone emotionally, yet his son yearned for the warmth he could only get from him through his movies. I like how this movie displays the failures to communicate within the family interactions, with something as simple as Gustav gifting his grandson comically inappropriate movies that he admires, and an even bigger example with the use of Elle Fanning, in her role as a substitute actress for Gustav's movie. She feels like the embodiment of the father and daughter's miscommunication, almost like she's in a different movie from the rest of the characters. But what I liked the most was how it displayed miscommunication with the reading of a script by two different people. It's the same words, but the person who reads them gives a totally different meaning. One that fits properly, and the other that feels like the words are worn like an unflattering garment. It's a great undeliberate presentation of the difficulty of expression, but also the different means of communication that can make up for the shortcomings of conversations or words. Now down to the final two movies of this list, and I would say this is the runner-up best movie of 2025. I'm sure you've often seen the "this is cinema" meme. Well, this movie can wear that like a badge of honor due to its impressive use of scale and scope, telling a story that feels big with a lot of external background texture, but at the foreground is this very simple and accessible interpersonal story about a father trying to save his daughter.
There are no hands on the clock.
Why?
Because they're not needed.
What time is it?
You know, I don't remember that part.
Bob Ferguson was an explosives expert, part of the revolutionary group known as the French 75, but after things got too heated, the group was hunted down and went into hiding. Now, after 16 years, the past has come back to haunt Bob, but specifically his daughter. When this movie gets going, it doesn't stop, driven by an urgent forward motion that displays a lot of technical difficulty, yet the filmmaking is continuously confident and expertly executed. Just the amount of locations that are used, the amount of extras that can fill a frame, the type of shots filming a chase scene from aerial to telephoto, and a lot of these scenes exist for only 3 seconds and we move on to the next difficult shot. It shows the work and attention to detail that went into creating this into a living, well-populated reality with perceivable depth. Yet this depth works as a perfect backdrop for the straightforward interpersonal father-daughter conflict. I like the contrast of Bob's character that has to keep up with the movie's pace to save the only thing in the world that's really important to him. Leonardo DiCaprio adds another notch to his belt of schlubby characters. A mess of a person, clumsy at best, and for most of the time has no knowledge of everything that's happening in the story. Yet he's trying to do this heroic thing despite it all. Although one of the most memorable performances in this movie end of the year is by Sean Penn's relentless and unhinged antagonist, Steve Lockjaw, a stiff action figure of a man with limited articulation points that looks like he only recently learned how to be a real boy. He brings an awkward energy that is caught between comical and creepy to every scene he's in. But the cinematic gem in this movie, and one of the best scenes you can watch this year, is the climactic car chase down the rolling hills. A thrilling, wordless segment that builds suspense with every cut, reaction, speeding, and disappearance of the rushing cars. A compelling use of the visual language. Again, it's a must-watch achievement. Before we get to the #1 movie of this list, I also want to take some time to recommend some movies that didn't make the final cut of this list. The first one I want to mention is a horror movie called It Ends. I really like that it has a very simple but interesting premise. A group of young friends driving down an endless road and suffering the existential dread that can cause. This movie has no release date yet, but it will come out sometime in 2026. Apparently you can watch it in the Letterboxd video store. The second recommendation is a very inventive rom-com called Eternity. If you like romantic comedies like me, and especially with the creative and fun premise of having to deal with the love triangle in the afterlife, I think you're gonna love this one. I really hope this movie gets more attention as it goes into streaming. If you like warm movies, then Little Amélie is a fantastic animated movie for you. It uses its medium very well to demonstrate how a child perceives the world around her, while every new experience can feel quite alien at that young age. It's very sweet and charming. Another movie that has some warmth is the existential and bittersweet Life of Chuck. It's a life-affirming movie that sadly has gone under the radar, but I hope you will enjoy. And the last recommendation is a movie from a director that I really love. It's Yorgos Lanthimos' grimy, uncomfortable, dark, and funny Bugonia. Although this tale of a seemingly demented, crusty makeshift kidnapping felt a bit predictable compared to the director's other work, it proves to be a fantastic showcase of Jesse Plemons' off-kilter but controlled acting. Okay, so it's time for the #1 movie of the year. But what could it be? I mean, there were so many good movies and some were cinematic achievements. but there was one that we connected with personally.
Even when we were watching it, we knew it was going to be a hard one to beat.
And that movie is the lush and intimate poem of loss and healing, Hamnet.
I need you to look after your mother and your sisters. Will you do that?
Yes.
Will you be brave?
Yes.
Yes. Will you be brave?
Yes.
The fictitious story behind the inspiration of the play Hamlet, but told through the perspective of William Shakespeare's wife, Agnes. Shakespeare is known for his brilliant capacity to explore and put into words the depth of human emotion. And in this movie, director Chloe Zhao does a great job of exploring the depth of loss that Will and Agnes suffer. Their romance, marriage, and family life is presented with care and authenticity, which turns into convincing devastation as the tragic events unfurl. It's powerful, gripping, and you most likely will cry, but also find some healing. If anything, you'll come away knowing that Jessie Buckley and Paul Mescal deserve an award for their harrowing performances. We did a full review and reaction in our TIFF video, but even after several months and a few episodes of grief later, my appreciation for Hamnet has only deepened. Much like Train Dreams, this is a movie that really stayed with me ever since I saw it. I think it's because they're both about loss, but this one is more about what do you do with that loss? What do you do when the thing that you love is gone? What happens to that love? And I think Chloe Zhao comes up with a good answer in the form of this film, and uses Shakespeare's legacy to show that love doesn't die, it transforms. And that is an incredibly comforting message that was further amplified by how we saw that movie. The fact that we were in a packed theater and you could hear people in the room breaking, it speaks to the importance of the communal experience of watching a movie. Being in a room with complete strangers and unified with the same understanding and sentiment, I think is an experience not to be reductive of its importance. So because of all that, Hamnet is our undeniable favorite film of the year. And on that note, we want to thank you for watching our Best of 2025 movie list, and I hope our recommendations piqued your interest. If not, then I hope it helped entrench your appreciation for those movies.
Let us know what your favorite movies of the year are down in the comments. For more recommendations and film essays, make sure to subscribe before you go. Until next time.